Hey guys, welcome to another pickups video. Let's get right into this. We got about 28 games to go through and some accessories sprinkled throughout, or maybe at the very end. But first up, we have Shadow Man remastered on the Switch. This was a limited run game, and the reason why I got this one was because it's my mother-in-law's favorite video game of all time. She can't stop talking about the PS1 version, so when I heard it was getting released on the Switch, I had to give it a fair shake. This is like a 3D action-adventure game. It's pretty antiquated by today's standards, but it's nice. I find it charming, right? They've obviously remastered it to have some HD visuals and that sort of thing, but the mechanics and stuff largely remain the same. I do know that they added one of the cut bosses from the original game into this version, so I would say this is the definitive version of Shadow Man. Now there is a part 2 which hasn't been released, and maybe that's it's better that way because I heard that game is absolutely abominable. So here is this one. Good stuff. This game came out today. Got Megaman Battle Network Legacy Collection. So in this game, on a single cartridge, you have Volume 1, and Volume 2 might be a download. I'm not really sure. I think it actually contains both on a single cartridge, because when I plugged this into my Switch, there was no required download, to my knowledge. But a very cool Game Boy Advance port from back in the day. This Mega Man is a vast departure from the side-scrolling, shooting, platforming stuff of the traditional Mega Man games. It adopts a grid-style battle system on random encounters. You use different items in your inventory as attacks and that sort of thing. It's pretty neat. It's a pretty creative way of doing the grid-based battle stuff here, but very story intensive as well. And really cool to have both games ported on over to the Switch. Fatal Frame, Mask of the Lunar Eclipse. I've never been a huge Fatal Frame enthusiast or anything, but I heard they're really cool survival horror games in which you combat the enemies, the ghosts, and all that sort of stuff with a camera. You got to take pictures of them, right? So this edition came with like this little, I don't know what they call it, a filter frame. This is just essentially two pieces. This border is translucent in the middle, and you see the picture. Not really sure what it is, besides a neat little added bonus to purchasing the game. Yeah, some stuff. Should be creepy, I guess. It's a long-running franchise. Big fans out there of this series. So this will be my first venture into a Fatal Frame game whenever I get the chance to do so. Last Switch game is an odd one. We have the Red Colony Trilogy. This is the limited edition published by East Asia Soft. They do some good things. And this game caught my attention for various reasons. I mean, one mainly, and it's just because it looked super weird. So they describe this game as a 2D ecchi horror experience. And ecchi is like the Japanese term for like overwhelmingly risque or something, right? Came with a boxed set. Came with like a sticker. I'm not a huge fan of these like booby games, I guess you can call them, right? But this one just looks super weird. I assume it's 3 individual games, if not, because they're kind of listed there, 1, 2, and 3. If not, it's the original soundtrack and the numbered certificate and the printed manual and poster that are taking up all this real estate in this box. I'm not going to be doing an unboxing. It's going to remain sealed for a little bit, but I am interested in streaming this game on my Twitch channel, unless it'll get me canceled or something. Look forward to checking this out over there. Just a singular PS5 game. This video, we have, of course, the classic Resident Evil 4. I myself own the Wii version of Resident Evil 4. I never got it on the GameCube, but back then the Wii version was the definitive version to own due to the motion control and point and shoot mechanics that the Wiimote enabled. But fast forward 1,000 years and we have it re-released again on the PS5 with very nice graphics, I would assume, and some quality of life features added into the game, and some stuff that may have not been there previous on other releases, but this is one of the best Resident Evil games I've heard, and they just had to release it on the PS5. They're going through all the different Resident Evils and I guess releasing them on modern hardware, and that's always welcome, I guess. But yeah, this is a must-have experience. I've never actually played it myself, so I guess I'll dive into the PS5 version and just stare at the Wii one. Some PS4 games. We have Awesomenauts Assemble, published by Sedesco and developed by Ronimo. In my quest to attain the physical copies for every game that I have digitally only, this was a PlayStation Network download at some point, and my buddy got me into it. It's a MOBA-styled game. What is that? Multiplayer Online Battle Arena, I think that's what it stands for. Basically like a tower defense style game with different heroes to choose from. Shout out to Gnaw. That's my boy. He's awesome. And yeah, I had it digitally only. Now I have the physical copy just to give it some real estate on the gaming shelf here, because I had my fun with this game and I just had to get it physically, and here it is. Awesomenauts Assemble. If you're into MOBAs, I encourage you to check this out. Not really sure if the servers are still up, but I think the bots do a good job of simulating a human experience, I guess, but it's fun. There's some local co-op here, so grab a buddy and have some fun. We got Frogun, or is it Frog Gun? Another limited run games release here. This game looks really fun. It adopts like a PS1 style retro polygonal graphics, level based. You're this little girl and you have this gun that looks like a frog, and I guess it shoots out its tongue like some sort of grappling hook tether gun, and it's like I said, level based, so I'm sure it's a quick playthrough unless there are a million levels. But this is another game that I plan on streaming. It just looks fun. I like the charming aesthetic of these retro style modern releases, because it just kind of brings me back to a simpler time. But yeah, this one looks colorful, fun, unique, and kind of silly. So here it is, Frog Gun. My last PS4 game is one that I've been on the hunt for a while now. We have Crossing Souls from Special Reserve Games. This one came in a very nice boxed set. There's a sheen to the text and the pictures and stuff like that. Looks really cool. It's numbered 499 of 1,000 copies, and it also came with some stuff. You got a thick manual and this like very cryptic sticker from Special Reserve Games. I'm not sure if this has anything to do with the game itself, but The actual game is another retro style looking game with some like pixel graphics. What do you call it? Like 16-bit at this point. I'm not really sure anymore, but here's some of the heroes. You got the whole top-down perspective, and here's a look at what some of those graphics actually look like, right? Pixelated. That's pretty cool. You get to kill some zombies, some ghouls and stuff. You know, you're a gang of teenagers saving the world from evil. That sort of stuff going on here. But it looks really neat. It might have been a Radical Reggie / Metal Jesus recommendation. And from the looks of it, it looked really cool. So, had to add it to the collection. I'll crack this open at some point. Yeah. So from PS4, we'll move on to a single PS3 game. El Shaddai, Ascension of the Metatron. This is one of those PS3 games that's getting a little bit harder to find, so as a collector, I just had to jump on it. I've been looking for it for a while now, and I saw it for a really, really decent price. It's like a 3D hack and slash sort of deal here with cel-shaded graphics, so it looks really cool. Unfortunately, I don't have my PS3 up in my new house up here yet. It's still in the motherland, so I'm really eager to get that console back. I've been amassing a small PS3 collection up here that I'm excited to try out. But this is definitely a hidden gem for any collectors out there. If you see El Shaddai, this dude here wielding a blade, I suggest you pick it up. I've heard some pretty decent things about it. From PS3, we'll move on to a singular PS2 game, and this is Maximo vs. Army of Zin. It was published by Capcom. This is like a 3D hack and slash, kind of like a God of War style game. I have part 1, and if I'm not mistaken, this series of games is they're supposed to be like a spiritual successor to Ghosts and Goblins, if I'm not mistaken. But pretty neat. I played it very briefly just to kind of check it out. And yeah, I mean, it's pretty sound in its mechanics. Kind of a cartoony art style that fits it really well. And it's cool that I have both games of the Maximo universe on the PS2 now. I don't think there are any others, so I can rest easy now that I have them both. You guys noticing a pattern here? We got just one PS1 game, and it's one that I've been looking for a long time. We got Steel Harbinger. And this one's pretty peculiar here because the game focuses on this like farmer's daughter or something that turns into this chaos bringer. And I guess it has like a top-down perspective or some sort of isometric perspective with some full motion video cutscenes, so you know it's extra cheesy. But I heard this game is just disgustingly hard. A lot of people just get stuck on the first level. But I wanted to give it a shot. I still haven't yet, but it's one of very few PS1 games that I was looking for. I'm not really big into collecting PS1 just because it hasn't aged great. Like unless the graphics are cartoony. Straight up just like two-dimensionally cartoony, or if I have some nostalgia for them, then I'll seek them out. Other than that, I'm not really delving into any new titles that I had never heard of before, but this actually kind of falls into that category. So Steel Harbinger, it looks really sweet. This is something I'm excited to add to the collection. All right, we're done with the PlayStation games. Now let's do some cartridge-based stuff. We got Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the movie, the video game on the Sega Genesis. Being a hardcore beat-em-ups fan, I somewhat enjoyed this game. It doesn't really hold a candle to the SNES version, and there are 2 SNES Mighty Morphin Power Ranger beat-em-up games, to my knowledge. There's one that's a direct like counterpart to this one, being the movie on the SNES as well. But then there's a previous title, I think, and I just think that one itself is a lot better than this one. Visuals are kind of rough here. It's extremely short. It ends abruptly, and unless I'm getting like the crappy ending to the game, it's just like super quick. You can probably knock it out in a half an hour, to be honest. But this game really shines in its variety of gameplay, right? There's it switches up the action from being Power Ranger to the actual like Megazord, where you can be the Tiger Zord or the Falcon Zord. All the Zords you can be in this game, and I think that's neat. Just a quick note. This game was suffering from some like peeling label condition, right? So this top was just coming off. But a little tip is if you use Mod Podge, I believe I used the matte version of Mod Podge. You just kind of like you squirt it on there, flatten it out, and check it out. It's held perfectly. It looks a lot better than it used to look. So happy with that. Game is a 5 out of 10. Another cartridge-based game, UN Squadron. For all you shoot 'em up fans out there, I believe this game is a must-have.
It makes you feel like a badass.
The action here is horizontally side-scrolling from left to right. At least with my short playtime on this game, that's kind of the format. You gain money with every run, and the money doesn't go away upon dying. So, you know, eventually you're able to afford stronger and stronger aircraft and upgrades to your ship. Yeah, it's highly recommend UN Squadron. It is an excellent game. Has really cool soundtrack. The visuals are sweet. And yeah, good stuff. Another Super Nintendo game. Oh man, Jurassic Park. This has to be one of the earliest memories I have in life, to be honest, is spectating my brother play Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo. When our dad bought us the Super Nintendo, it came with Super Mario World, and then my brother wanted Jurassic Park as well. So he would alternate playing those two titles, and this game just has such an amazing soundtrack. And it's a difficult game too. It kind of has that top-down camera angle, and this is kind of a game that people have said was the open world game before open world games existed, just because the map was fairly large and you kind of have free range to explore it. There are segments in the game when you have to go in like building interiors, and when that happens, the gameplay shifts to a more like retro first-person shooter like Doom or Wolfenstein, and those parts are just rough. Like that stuff hasn't really aged the greatest, but it's just a pretty tough game all around. The soundtrack does make up for the difficulty level here, but I got this game mainly for nostalgia's sake. So here it is, Jurassic Park on the Super Nintendo. Yoshi's Safari, and this is a Super Scope game. I do not own a Super Scope, but I do have plans on owning one at some point. I think you're Mario riding Yoshi's back in this game, and you just go around shooting stuff. On the topic of shooting, I have a little project that I want to do for myself here. I'll show off some gun peripherals that I purchased as well. This is the Nyko Perfect Shot for your Wiimote. You kind of just put it in there, and it's a plastic housing with some electronics so that you can plug in the nunchuck on the bottom there. But what I want to do is get a pegboard to put on my wall, and I'll have a gun wall. So I can put my Wii Zapper.
My PS3 sharpshooter gun.
You put the Move controllers in this housing too, right? With an adjustable gun stock. That's pretty neat. All right, so I want to have all my fake guns on this gun wall. I think that'd be sweet. And whenever I get a Super Scope, to play Yoshi Safari, I can put it on that wall as well. Super cool stuff. We got Xevious, the Avenger, on the Game Boy Advance. Of course, this is an NES port. The Game Boy Advance did a classic series, launches of some classic NES games. And the cool thing to note here is that the actual game cartridge is like the same shade of gray as NES cartridges were back in the day. But this is just a very retro style shooter. You got the top-down camera and you're dropping bombs on land enemies and just shooting your guns at aerial enemies, that sort of stuff. Nothing too crazy, but something that is pretty crazy. Iridion 3D on the... Ah, damn it. On the Game Boy Advance. Holy crap, how is this game on the Game Boy Advance? The visuals look like a PS1 game, and this is an awesome shooter that looks 10 times better than Xevious over here. I don't know how they pulled off this black magic to make that happen on a handheld system from like 1720. It's crazy. It looks great. Sometimes your ship will obscure your view from incoming projectiles and that sort of thing, but honestly, the soundtrack and just the graphics in the game make up for those small difficulties encountered every now and then. You'll also note the cartridge color difference here between the NES Classic Series and just your standard Game Boy Advance release. I think that's a pretty neat detail that they implemented here. So whenever you're game hunting, obviously you'll see different colors and you can differentiate your stuff. Another Game Boy Advance game, we have CT Special Forces. This is part 1. There is a part 2 that I'm now on the hunt for, but this is essentially a little bit less linear Metal Slug type game. It's pretty cool. I'm enjoying it so far. I've only played a few levels here, but I can definitely see why these were cult classics. Good stuff. Let's do some Wii games. I got a whole bunch for this episode, and the first one is a banger. We have Cabela's Big Game Hunter 2010. I'm just kidding. This is just an organ donor game, what I like to call them. I bought this game so I could swap its very nice case for another Wii game that I have coming up here that had a very rough case, which is now this one. It's kind of like cracked at the top. I'll do that every now and then. I think I've done it to another Cabela's game. Never big on these like hunting games. Ooh, I need to get whatever that is. But yeah, it's just kidding. This game probably sucks. Another game that probably sucks. Jeep Thrills, published by Zoo on the Wii here. I purchased this mainly to have another novelty in my collection. I mean, come on, look at this thing. It comes in a cardboard sleeve. You race Jeeps, and since I'm a Jeep guy, I just had to get it, right?
You own the car, now you own the game.
And I've played it very briefly, and I'm going to try and keep it at that, because, oh boy, it uses the Wii motion controllers to steer the cars. I remember being weird and playing Mario Kart Wii that way, and that was perfectly acceptable. But fast forward, like 20 years, and it's just not the best way to play a racing game, to be honest. With the Wiimote just going left to right, it's crazy. The engine sounds sound horrible. The music is not good. Graphics are not good. But it's fun. You know, maybe a drunken night with friends, and you pop this in, and everyone has a blast. So, Jeep Thrills! You know, since we were talking about peripherals, I also want to briefly mention this purchase. It's a GameCube. Come on. We're all tangled up in cords here. But the first re-release of the GameCube controller when Super Smash Bros. For the Wii U and 3DS came out. Nintendo started producing these GameCube controllers once again, and this one is extremely minty. The reason why I got this one is because I own the one that came out for Super Smash Bros. Ultimate. And if I could draw your attention to the little logo, obviously there's a difference between the two. And the other added bonus to having a brand new GameCube controller in 2023 is that the cord is like 20 feet long on these things. So that's definitely an added bonus. But this one's in awesome shape, and I'm a control freak, so I gotta get variations here. Anyways, back to the Wii games. Godzilla Unleashed. Oh man, you know me, I'm a big fan of Destroy All Monsters Melee on the GameCube, and I heard that the Wii version was far superior. Now, given that it's been released on a more modern console than the GameCube, I would assume that's the case. I played it very briefly, and the graphics kind of sucked. That's kind of to be expected, though. So you got your just, a 4-player brawler, arena brawler sort of game. Choose a monster, kill a monster, grab building, throw building. That sort of slapstick humor going on in this game. And this one's a little bit tougher to come by, so as soon as I saw it in a crappy case, right, I had to get Cabela's Hunting or whatever and swap the case there, but very nice. The case was the only thing in bad condition. Everything else is very minty. So here it is. Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. Again, I'm not a huge superhero fan, whether it's comic books,
Movies.
Video games, but if I had to choose one superhero to be my favorite, it would be Spider-Man. And ever since Disney purchased them, right, other companies are not allowed to use the copyright or, whatever thing, right? The license. They lost the license, so all these games, all these Marvel games started getting tougher and tougher to attain. And I heard that Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions was one of the better Spider-Man games. So, this was kind of a panicked and frenzied pickup, even though I've been looking for it for a few years now, to be honest. Here it is, finally. I started stumbling upon a lot more copies of this game in particular on the Wii. I think it's on other systems, but they were always missing the manual, or they had, they were covered in boogers or something. But this one is very nice. So I gave it a quick little clean, and now it's on my shelf. You can be all these Spider-Men. Oh man, we got heavy fire Afghanistan. Yep, this is an on-rail shooter published by Mastiff. I think I've seen those guys somewhere. Oh, look at that. It's compatible with the piece of plastic that has no electronics. Who would have thunk? Yeah, this may or may not have been a Radical Reggie / Metal Jesus recommendation. But it's really rough, man. It's really, really rough. Given that I'm just like the ultimate Pavlov VR fanatic nowadays, and playing stuff in virtual reality and that sort of thing, it's really hard to get into a game with as rough graphics as this and just pointing a Wiimote at your TV. It just doesn't work so much anymore, at least not for this game. But I heard there's some seasoned collectors out there that are looking for copies of this game, so I had to do my part and get myself a copy before they vanish. Tornado Outbreak, published by Konami. Here we have the Wii version. I'm pretty sure I've seen it on the PS3. This is kind of like a Katamari-like, in which you play as a tornado, a sentient tornado, and the more and more you destroy and engulf in your chaotic funnel cloud, the bigger you get. So you start as small tornado, then turn into big tornado. Last Wii game is One Chambara Bikini Zombie Slayers. Oh man, I had never seen this game in my life. So when I saw it behind one of the little glass display case at my local video game shop, I was like, I need that game. I need it now. Apparently, the Onechambara, I don't even know how to pronounce that, Onechambara series is a long-running franchise. If it didn't start on the PS2, it definitely started on the PS3. And there's been a lot of releases, but to my knowledge, this is the only one on the Wii. And the gameplay is just like short level-based zombie slashers with lots and lots of Wiimote waggle. But it works. It works in this game. You either waggle your Wiimote vertically or horizontally, and your character responds accordingly on the screen. And lots of blood and gore and just like limbs flying everywhere, with scantily clad females and that sort of thing as your protagonist. So I know I've said I'm not a fan of these booby games, and this pickups video is kind of pointing elsewhere, right? Given the Red Colony trilogy shown previously. But this game definitely looks like a novelty, and my Wii needs a little bit of spice. What? We're actually almost done, so let's get some garbage out of the way. This was another organ donor game. Big Brain Academy. I used to have the cartridge loose, so I went ahead and purchased the full everything you see here for like $5. So yeah, I don't want to give this game more screen time other than I guess you can play it on your DS and you'll get smarter. 2 more games. Fight Night Round 2. Shout out to Bernard Hopkins. This is the GameCube version, which is nice because Super Punch-Out is included right off the bat in this game. So that's a nice little Nintendo added bonus here. This game is super sweet. I'm not a huge sports game fan either, but if it's like boxing, sign me up. Part 1 was amazing. Part 2 is more of the same. It employs the whole ragdoll physics upon knocking an opponent out, or knocking them down, I should say. And that is always over the top and hilarious whenever these characters start flopping about after getting punched in the face. So, yeah, really cool control scheme as well. Does the whole, like, full control punches with the C-stick here, so you kind of trace your hooks like this, and your uppercuts are a little bit deeper, like starting here up, right? So the game is tracking your inputs, your gestures, and it translates to the screen, right? So you do have full punch control when you're playing this game. Now, I know that subsequent entries into this franchise kind of simplified those controls, so it lost its appeal once it started oversimplifying stuff for me. So I think right around round 2 really is the cool entries. I think there's a part 3 and a Fight Night Champion, which is part 4. Not really sure, but I'm happy to have this game in my collection. I used to have it. I sold it off, and I have to recoup all those games, right? So here it is, nice and complete. The last game is Cell Damage on the GameCube. This is a game I never thought I'd see out in the wild. Just simply, this was my very first time I've ever seen this game anywhere, right? The cover here, this very colorful cover, caught my attention, and this game is essentially a cel-shaded Twisted Metal, published by EA Games. It's something that would just never come out nowadays. And the graphics have definitely held up because it's cel-shaded, right? It looks nice and cartoony, very vivid and stuff like that. I gave it a whirl, and it's pretty interesting. It's not the best game. I don't think I'll be playing it for hours, but it's one that I've been looking out for a while now too. So here it is in the game collection forever. That does it for this episode of Pickups. Let me know what you guys think about all these games that I've accumulated over the past month or so. We got some shooters, we got some retro stuff, some newer stuff, some weird stuff. Some weird stuff. Yeah, a lot of it will be streamed on my Twitch channel. So give that a look-see. We're always playing all sorts of stuff on the channel there. And I love doing these pickups videos because it just gives you a brief glimpse of stuff to expect. Okay, bye.